quiz, guys. Why do diets suck? Why is diet a 4-letter word? I'm sure you could come up with some answers when I ask you that. And it's an interesting question, and I think there's a lot of answers to it, right? But first, what's the allure of a diet? I think for most people, when they find that they're out of control, let's say, like they're not seeing results and they really want to see results, and they think like, oh, what am I going to do? I don't even know where to start. Sometimes latching onto some sort of a structured plan is what feels like it'll help them succeed. And sometimes that gets you started, and that's great. Sometimes just knowing what you know what you should and shouldn't have. I've talked about this in the past, but you need to be able to figure out a way to eat what you should be eating. And I think a lot of times diets sort of have that promise of making it easier. But the question is, why do diets suck? And now, historically, compliance to the diet is low. All studies show that there's a big drop-off. Most people don't really make it past week 3. Which is interesting, because I think that some of these diets and some of these plans might actually work if someone was able to stick to doing it long enough. Because really anything that you do to get you into a calorie deficit will have some level of results. Is it the most efficient results? Not always, but it's results nonetheless, right? So historically, following some sort of a rigid plan, and the more rigid, the less likely you'll be compliant with it. The fall off is big. The dropout rate is big, as we call it in the studies. Now, why is that? I think for most people, there's a very big social influence on food. It's like you're going out with friends, you have your family, and you kind of don't want to feel like the person out. You don't want to feel like that person that guy or that girl that's making a decision that doesn't line up with the ethos of the group at the moment. Or maybe you don't want to make somebody in your family, they're making you a meal, and you don't want them to make something different. You feel bad. You're going out for dinner, and everyone's having the fun stuff on the menu, and you can't have. So right there, any structured plan that you had kind of goes out the window, because it really never accounted for life, as we call it. Life happens. Social influence happens. And usually these plans are so rigid that they don't account for this stuff. It might be great if you're locked up at home for a few weeks. Maybe if you're at a ranch somewhere where that's all you're focusing on, right? But it's hard to be out there in the real world and still follow such a strict plan. This is why you often hear us talk about this sort of 80-20 approach and finding your path for that, right? But life is in the way of you sticking to this plan. And no one blames you for that. It's really a fault of the plan rather than yourself, because that plan never accounted for it. It never left any flexibility or any room. And I think for the most people, that's because they're feeling like a lack, feeling missing out, right? The FOMO of all it, that you feel that everyone else is enjoying it and they're seeing results. Even if that's not an actual thing, it's just your perception. The fact that you feel like you're missing out makes you less likely to follow this plan. So it could have worked. We never know. But they suck. Diets suck. They're a 4-letter word for a reason, and it's because it's hard to stick to. It doesn't leave room for life, and that's why you won't hear me talk about diets and meal plans, all that stuff often, because they're to me a 0 to 100. You have to be 100% on that, otherwise you cannot succeed. And that's just as much of a mindset, because it's technically you could be on it, go out for dinner, and go right back on it, and you would still succeed. But most people feel like, if I can't hit this plan that I was promised would work, if I slip out even a little bit, I'm not going to do it at all, and I'm going to give up. And again, that's why the dropout's high. And this is why more and more it's 80-20, because it allows that room. It allows you to live life. You're not going to be missing out. You're not going to feel like you're the social outcast. You're going to feel like you're part of your life. You can still live, and you don't have to center everything around your diet. You're going to be able to follow the plan and still succeed and still live your life. So this is why diets suck, and why I think you should be having a little bit more of a flexible approach, more of an 80-20 approach.